So now that we know how that macros work, and we know how to create custom commands, the last thing we have to do is to put these custom commands on the ribbon. But before we do that, we need to talk about how the ribbon is set up. So looking at AutoCAD here, the ribbon is this big, large area up here at the top. It's set up with tabs at the top. So there's several tabs: Home, Insert, Annotate, Parametric, and so on. These are used to group your tools so that you can, determine what workflow you're in right now. On each tab there are panels. There's a Draw panel, for example, a Modify panel, an Annotation panel. And these panels are again used to group your tools so that you can keep them all together. The panels themselves have tools associated placed on them in rows and columns. So the Draw panel, for example, has one row of large tools with text, okay, and then it actually has a sub panel here with 3 rows where you have your rectangle and polygon, your ellipses, and your hatch. Then on the Draw panel here, if you click the slide out, there's actually 2 more rows of small tools with no text here. So the Home panel, or the Draw panel, actually has 3 rows. One here with large tools with text, and then row 2 below the slide out, and row 3 below the slide out. We're going to create our own custom commands here using these we're going to create a custom ribbon tab and panel using what we know. To do so, you invoke the CUI, that's Customize User Interface command, and it brings up the Customize User Interface box. We used this earlier to create our custom commands down here, and if I choose where it says All Commands and look at Custom Commands, you'll see that our custom commands now live down here. Up at the top, it has the customization files. And we don't want to interfere with what AutoCAD has because they've got their own stuff and it works really well. But what we want to do is we want to create a partial customization file just for this class. To do so, click on the Transfer tab up at the top and then click right here where it says Create a New Customization File. So now we're creating a new partial customization file just for use in this class. And then immediately we'll just come over here and say Save This. It asks us where we want to save it, so you'll notice that I've got it pointed to my 20B folder. I've got a subfolder in there called CUI, and I'm going to call it INDR20B. So now I've created this customization file just for this class that I can work with, and I don't have to worry about interfering with anything that AutoCAD has working for it. Now that I've created it, I want to go back to the Customize tab, and I want to load that partial file into the main file here. So to do that, if I go back down here, by the way, see it says Partial Customization Files. If I expand this, notice that the INDR20B is not here. So to get it to show up down here, we click on the little Load Partial Customization File here. You'll browse to where it is. It takes me there automatically. I say Open. And now notice that if I go back to All Customization Files here and I expand, that I've got my INDR20B customization file down here. So now if I expand the little plus here, you'll notice that on this we've got ribbon. This is what we're concerned with today, is customizing the ribbon. So if I expand the ribbon, again, you'll see that there are tabs. Okay, so tabs are like Home, Insert, Annotate, and so on. There are panels, which are things like Draw, Modify, and Annotation. But this one doesn't have anything on it. If I scroll back up and we look in the, we're in Drafting and Annotation right now. If I look at what the ribbon has for tabs, there's lots of them. So the Home 2D, which is where we are, if I expand this, see there's the Draw, Modify, Annotation, Layers, and so on, right? But what I want to do is I want to create my own down here. So I say on the tabs, I want to create a new tab that's going to be called INDR20B. So you right click on tabs, choose New Tab, and give it a name. In this case, INDR20B. Now just the tab isn't enough because it won't show up unless it has a panel and unless the panel has some tools on it. So now the tab is done, I need to create the panel. So I'll right click on panels, say new panel, and I'm going to call this one trees. I'm calling it trees because I've got a bunch of tree blocks that I'm going to put onto that panel. At this point I've created my tab and I've created my panel, but it doesn't know that I want this panel to be on this tab. So I'm just going to click now and drag this up here so that now it knows that my INDR20B tab that I've just created also has this panel on it. So now the tab is created, the panel is created. The last thing that I need to do is put tools on my panel. We're just going to create one row of 6 different trees. You're going to have your cedar, the cherry, the myrtle, and so on. They're all going to be on one row. In order to put those tools on the row, you now come back down here to where your commands are, filter it so that you see just your custom commands, and then you can take these commands and you can drag them one at a time up onto row 1. Notice that as I do so, that these commands will start to stack up, and not only will they show here as commands, but they'll show up over here on the panel. Now we're not worried yet about what the panel looks like. This isn't what it's going to look like when it's done. So I'm going to grab all of these tools and put them up there one at a time so that they're in place. Click and drag. 2 more to go. So at this point I've created my custom tab, my custom panel, I've got my custom commands on it, but right now they are, if I look at it, they are all small tools without text. And that's not what I want. I want something that looks like this, a large tool with text below it. So if I click right here, notice I'm going to click on that command, which is going to be my, my cedar. If I drop this down, there are several different options for what we want. I want this large with text vertical. So I do that, and now notice that it gives me a cedar tree. It says cedar below it. The preview isn't quite right, but it'll fix it once we apply everything. So I'll go through and I'll pick each tool and I'm going to change it to large with text vertical. Okay, so now that I've got the panel set up the way I want it, again, this isn't quite exactly the way I want. It's pretty close. I can choose apply so that it saves all of that information. The last thing now is I need to take this tab that I've created and I have to add it to this drafting and annotation area. So notice that I've got this all expanded out, and actually all I really need is to make sure that this new tab that I have is created and it's exposed. Come back up to the top, click one time on drafting and annotation, and you'll see now that this is where we are. I've got menus, ribbons, palettes, ribbon tabs. These are my tabs up here. So I'll scroll back down, and I want this new INDR20B tab that I just created. I want it over here. So I'll click and hold and then drag it over and put it on the ribbon tabs. Now I put it on there, but you'll notice that it doesn't put it at the top, it puts it at the bottom. And I want you guys to put this tab, this new tab that you've created, right in between home and insert. So I'm just going to drag it up so that it's right in between the home tab and the insert tab. I'll have my INDR20B tab that's there, and it won't show up until I choose apply and OK, and then it reloads the CUI, and notice that now I've got home up at the top, I've got INDR20B up at the top, and when I click on it, I've got my first panel with all of my different commands. They're large commands with text, and when I click on them, they will work as expected.